All right, we have a bunch of headlines catching our attention. Paying more for education in Michigan and our armchair expertise when it comes to the Olympics. But first I want to start off with a meeting that happened this week with the State Board of Ed. The State Superintendent, Brian Whiston, talked to them this week and is talking more and more about this study that came out at the end of June that the state mandated that we do, talking about closing the achievement gap and the ideal spending amount of money per pupil spending that this study came out and said we should be spending in the exact amount, $8,667. And so the State Superintendent is urging the legislature to take this up and try to close that gap, or because what we're spending right now is between $7,500 and $8,200 per pupil in the state. So Nancy, let me start with you. What's the over-under on what you think the legislature is going to do in terms of a little bit more spending per pupil spending here?
I'm not really seeing them go for it. Yeah. But I mean, so the adequacy, the adequate education study is fascinating, because the firm that was hired to find out what they did was they looked at districts that were achieving the best results in the state, and they looked at what those districts were spending. They threw out the top 13 districts that were spending so much that they were outliers, and a lot of those are rural districts where, they're not the average school district. So then they looked at, the state had asked them to look at districts that were performing above the statewide average. Mm-hmm. So this firm looks at districts in the state, and they find that only in one subject area are Michigan statewide averages routinely scoring proficient. And so they basically said, this is a kind of a bad standard, because what you're saying is, what does it cost to get you to above the statewide average, even when the statewide average is not satisfactory? Mm-hmm. They said, we're going to make a different criteria. We're going to do that, but we're also going to make a different criteria and look at the schools that are actually top performing in that schools are scoring above proficient. And that's where they got this number.
You also have the governor who's created this 21st Century Education Commission, mm-hmm. Nolan. How does that play into what the legislature may or may not do, or what their fortitude is for changing anything when it comes to funding?
One thing the legislature isn't going to do or shouldn't do is put in place funding increases until we've decided on, we can all sit down and agree on what education should look like in this state, what education reform, accountability, all those other things that the legislature was charged with doing and hasn't done yet in terms of putting in place school accountability. It's not going to happen until you get a unified strategy for improving schools. If you look at Tennessee, which has made huge gains in education over the last few years, they all got behind, all the interests in the state got behind the same plan. And here you've got groups that want the money without the reform. You've got the groups that want reform and not the money. We're going to have to get together, and we've said this at this table before, behind a unified strategy for improving education in the state, and then people will lobby for these funds.
All right, last word on this, Nancy.
There's so many words to choose from. But one of the things that happened in Tennessee was that they used a bottom-up strategy. It was a thing where they worked very collaboratively with parents, with districts on the local level. It wasn't a statewide top-down solution. But the other thing is, we can say like it isn't just more money, it isn't just whatever, but money sure helps. And we're not talking about, when we talk about poor performing districts not routinely scoring proficient, above 50% proficient, except in one subject area, reading. We're not talking about large, urban impoverished districts like Detroit or Flint, or we're talking about statewide. We're talking about communities that aren't, people tend to think, oh, well, we're not Detroit, we're not such and such, so we don't have these problems. They do.
Every demographic group, every demographic group in this state, every demographic community performs worse or among the worst in the nation. We are not doing well anywhere. I agree, money would help, but you can't just spend money. You've got to spend money for a purpose.
How you spend the money?
And we haven't got that plan in place.
Well, let's hope Lansing gets a little bit of a coordinated act together. All right, you're watching the Olympics?
I am.
Nancy, are you watching the Olympics at all?
No.
No? You mean you're not watching judo? Ping pong? My kids are getting into the ping pong. Excuse me, table tennis. Excuse me.
I wish you could see that.
Is this a thing you can say on TV? But I don't have. I only have streaming. I don't have TV.
That's okay. We have online platforms just for you if you'd like to watch PBS.
Every night it's the same 3 sports. I'm getting a little tired of it. I mean, I like the swimming and gymnastics and the volleyball, but over and over and over, I wish they'd. There's a lot of weird sports in the Olympics that would be fun to watch.
Rhythmic gymnastics.
Yes, exactly.
Incredibly athletic.
Do we still have the same passion as a country for the Olympics as that we did like in '80?
I think NBC is playing it so safe. They only want to show us the marquee sports,
sanitized,
and then it's over and
version.
over and over. You can work in some of these bizarre little sports they do, and I think people would enjoy
Archery
it.
was on this morning. When
That would have been fun.
I would be more excited to watch trap shooting or rhythmic gymnastics
fun.
than I guess swimming probably.
And I guess there's some off channels if you can find them.
You can. It's Bravo, and there's a couple of other
never
channels
find
that they
those.
did. Oh no, you got to.
I could talk about gender bias and coverage of female Olympians.
Well, we need another 30 minutes for that because I do hear you on that.
I could tell you about this great show Preacher I've been binge watching. There's a lot of other stuff.
We're going to save that for offline. Hey, thanks, Nance. It's always good to have you in here. All right, Nolan, we'll see you next week. And that's going to do it for My Week. Glad that you could be with us. Check out MyWeek.org and Facebook and Twitter. Tell us what you'd like to talk about in an upcoming show. We'll listen to you. Thanks for supporting Detroit Public TV. I'm Christy McDonald, and we'll see you next time for My Week. Take care.